The wind howled through the bustling streets of New York City as Daniel Carter hurried along the sidewalk, adjusting his coat against the cold. It was late afternoon, and the streets were packed with workers heading home, tourists snapping photos, and street vendors calling out their last deals of the day. As he reached for his phone to check a message, a frail voice cut through the noise. "Excuse me, young man. Could you spare $1?" Daniel looked up to see an old man standing on the corner. His clothes were worn, his shoes scuffed, and his thin frame suggested he hadn't had a proper meal in days. His piercing blue eyes, however, held a sharpness that seemed out of place for someone in his condition. Daniel hesitated. He had walked past countless homeless people before, but something about this man's voice, calm, steady, almost expectant, made him pause. $1? Daniel asked, studying the man's face. The old man nodded. "Just one." Daniel frowned. It was an odd request. Usually, when someone asked for money, it was 5, 10, or whatever someone could spare. But just $1? Why only $1? Daniel found himself asking. The old man smiled, a knowing look in his eyes. "Because that's all I need." Daniel studied the old man, debating whether to walk away or entertain the strange request. The city had taught him to be skeptical. People ran all kinds of scams, some elaborate, others as simple as asking for small amounts from dozens of strangers to accumulate a fortune by day's end. But something about this man felt different. With a sigh, Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled dollar bill. "Here," he said, handing it over. The old man took it carefully, as if it were a treasure, and nodded. "Thank you, son." "Why only $1?" Daniel asked again, unable to let go of his curiosity. The old man chuckled. "Would you have given me more?" Daniel smirked. "Depends on what you needed it for." The man's blue eyes twinkled with amusement. "I suppose that's a fair answer." He tucked the bill into his coat pocket and turned to leave. Daniel watched him shuffle away, a strange feeling settling in his gut. It wasn't just the odd request. There was something about the way the man carried himself. He wasn't just another beggar on the streets. Before he could stop himself, Daniel called out, "Wait!" The old man paused and looked over his shoulder. Daniel hesitated, then finally asked, "Who are you?" The old man smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent a chill down Daniel's spine. "You'll find out soon enough," he said, and with that, he disappeared into the crowd. Daniel stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching the old man vanish into the sea of pedestrians. His heart pounded, not out of fear, but from a strange sense of curiosity that refused to fade. Who was that man? He shook his head, trying to brush off the encounter. It's just a weird old guy, nothing more. Yet, as he turned to leave, something in his gut told him this wasn't over. Later that evening, Daniel sat in his apartment, scrolling mindlessly through the news on his phone. The encounter with the old man kept replaying in his mind, the sharpness in his eyes, the cryptic response, and the way he carried himself with an air of confidence. Why only $1? Unable to shake the feeling, Daniel pulled up the security camera app connected to his office building's street view. He had walked past that very corner every day for years, but he couldn't recall ever seeing the old man before. He rewound the footage to earlier in the day, just before their meeting. His eyes widened. The old man had been standing there for hours, yet he hadn't asked anyone else for money. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He was waiting for me? His fingers trembled slightly as he zoomed in on the footage. That same knowing smile was on the old man's face, even before Daniel had stopped. It was as if he already knew how their encounter would unfold. A chill ran down his spine. Who the hell is this guy? And then, as he stared at the screen, something even stranger happened. An alert popped up. New article trending. Mysterious old man seen giving away money. His identity will shock you. Daniel's pulse quickened. He clicked the link. What he saw next made his blood run cold. Daniel's hands trembled as he read the headline again. Mysterious old man seen giving away money. His identity will shock you. His mind raced. Wait, giving away money? But he asked me for $1. He clicked the article, his heartbeat loud in his ears. The page loaded, revealing a blurry photo of the same old man from earlier, standing on a different street corner. The caption underneath read, An unidentified elderly man has been spotted in multiple cities asking strangers for exactly $1. But here's where it gets strange. Hours later, those same strangers are seen receiving unexpected fortunes. Is this some kind of social experiment, or is there more to the story? Daniel's jaw tightened as he scrolled down. There were testimonials from people claiming the man had approached them just as he had approached Daniel. Some ignored him, others gave him $1. But the ones who did, something bizarre happened to them afterward. One man received an unexpected job offer the very next day. Another had a long-lost relative reach out and offer to pay off his debts. A woman who was struggling to pay rent mysteriously found an envelope of cash in her mailbox. It was as if the old man's request for $1 was some kind of test. Daniel swallowed hard. He had never believed in miracles, fate, or luck. But this was too much of a coincidence. Then he saw something that made his breath catch. A grainy black and white image, clearly an older photograph, of the same man. The caption underneath stunned him. John Lexington, the billionaire who vanished 30 years ago. Daniel's eyes widened. No way, it can't be him. But the resemblance was undeniable. The man who had asked him for $1 was supposed to be dead. Daniel's breath came in short, sharp bursts as he stared at the old photograph. John Lexington. The name stirred something deep in his memory. He quickly typed it into a search engine, and within seconds, countless articles flooded his screen. John Lexington had been one of the wealthiest men in America, an investor, philanthropist, and financial genius. Then, 30 years ago, he disappeared without a trace. Some believed he had died. Others speculated he had faked his death, but no concrete evidence had ever surfaced, until now. Daniel scrolled down, absorbing every detail. Lexington was known for his eccentricities, particularly his obsession with testing people's morals. He once gave away $1 million to a janitor who returned his lost wallet, proving that he valued integrity over status. But why was he out on the streets now, asking for a single dollar? Daniel's mind raced. If it's really him, then why? What's the purpose of all this? His phone vibrated, breaking his trance. It was a message from an unknown number. Meet me at the same corner. Midnight. Come alone. Daniel's heart pounded. There was no name, but he already knew who it was. Daniel arrived at the street corner just before midnight. The city had quieted down, the once bustling streets now eerily empty. He shoved his hands into his jacket pockets, scanning his surroundings. A soft shuffle of footsteps echoed behind him. He turned, and there he was, John Lexington, or at least the man who claimed to be him. The old man stepped forward, his blue eyes gleaming under the dim streetlight. "You came," Daniel exhaled sharply. "Who are you?" The old man chuckled. "You already know." Daniel's jaw clenched. "John Lexington is dead." "Am I?" The man's smile deepened, but there was something sad behind his eyes. "Or did the world just decide to forget me?" Daniel shook his head in disbelief. "Why are you doing this? Why ask me for $1? What's the point?" Lexington studied him for a moment before speaking. "Tell me, Daniel, why did you give me the $1? The question took him off guard. "I don't know, I just—" He hesitated. "You looked like you needed it." Lexington nodded. A simple act of kindness. No expectations, no assumptions, just human decency. He took a slow breath. You'd be surprised how many people walk by without a second glance. Or worse, they mock me. Daniel swallowed hard. Lexington reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the very same dollar Daniel had given him. This dollar, he said, holding it between his fingers, is worth more than all the billions I ever made. Daniel frowned. I don't understand. The old man stepped closer. It's not about the money, it never was. It's about the heart behind it. He pressed the dollar back into Daniel's hand. That's why you were chosen. Daniel's fingers tightened around the bill. Chosen for what? Lexington smiled. To change everything. Daniel's grip tightened around the dollar bill as Lexington's words echoed in his mind. Chosen for what? The old billionaire took a step closer, his gaze unwavering. I've spent the last 30 years searching for people like you, Daniel. People who act with kindness, without expecting anything in return. Daniel frowned. But why disappear? You could have done so much more with your wealth. Lexington sighed, his face momentarily clouded with sorrow. I tried, but power and money, they attract the wrong people. The more I gave, the more people took. Not because they needed it, but because they were greedy. He shook his head. So I vanished. I needed to see the world from a different perspective, to find people who deserved the chance to make a difference. Daniel stared at him, still struggling to wrap his head around it all. And you think I'm one of those people? Lexington smiled. I know you are. A cold breeze swept through the street, but Daniel barely felt it. His mind raced with possibilities. So, what now? Lexington reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. Inside this is a key, an address, and a bank account in your name. There's $5 million in it. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. You're joking? The old man chuckled. I don't joke about things like this. Daniel hesitated. What's the catch? No catch, Lexington said. Just a request. Daniel narrowed his eyes. And what's that? Lexington's gaze turned serious. Use it wisely. Help people who truly need it. Pass on the kindness you gave me without even thinking twice. Daniel felt his heart pounding. $5 million. It was life-changing. But even more than that, it was a test, a chance to prove that kindness, not greed, could shape the world. Daniel slowly reached out and took the envelope. Lexington smiled. You'll know what to do. And with that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. Daniel stood there, staring at the envelope in his hands, knowing that his life and the lives of many others was about to change forever.